Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone, and beautiful Chicago day. The weather's been fantastic here recently. But it's just an opportunity to kind of do a season review, zooming out and looking at the year as a whole. Oftentimes I get asked how you're going to measure success, knowing that wins and losses might be a difficult measure. And you look across this team, the contributions that we've gotten from so many young players, the Kyle Teals and the Caros, and what Colson Montgomery has done, and Chase Mydroth in his first season in the big leagues. Vargas taking a step forward, Lenine Sosa having the year that he did, Shane Smith becoming an all-star, as a Rule 5 pick, and Mike Vassell being excellent in the bullpen role, as another Rule 5 pick that we were able to acquire. So, to have this young group transition to the big leagues the way that they have, looking back, if you would have told me that they were going to come up here and do what they've done and shown the fight that they have, I would have been pretty happy. With that being said, we acknowledge that there's plenty of work that needs to be done. We know that we're in a review phase right now, looking at different areas of the organization, whether it be departments, coaching staff, players, what have you. And once we, exit kind of the review phase and enter in the off season, we want to continue the momentum that we've created here. We're excited about the future. Just anyone that seemingly has tracked and followed the White Sox, there's been a lot of brighter moments than years past, and people can see and feel the build here, and that was really the goal coming in. And we're going to find ways to improve this. Most importantly, we need to have these young players or players in this organization have an excellent offseason. Absolutely, dominate when it comes to their off-season programming and providing the support that's needed, in that continual development. So, we're organizing that. We're going to carry it out in the off-season because these players, this group is vital, for the future success of this organization. And so, we've got a little bit more time to season's end. We want to finish as strongly as we can. Continue to have conversations with Will and the staff, and we've got coordinators and directors in town having discussions, and then make some decisions at the end of the season, and continue to build the momentum in the off season and bring us towards 2026.
What areas do you feel like needs to be addressed to build that momentum?
Well, I mean, you look at, we've got a young pitching staff. We've got pitchers that have done well, taken steps forward, some that have plateaued a little bit. I think that's an area that you always want to deepen and strengthen. You look at the bullpen, we've had parts of the year that our bullpen has done really well. There's been some times where it's kind of let us down. You look at some of the one-run losses. Okay, how do we turn those into wins? It's deeper than just having a better bullpen, because we know it comes down to scoring runs and preventing runs. But to strengthen that bullpen and deepen the bullpen, knowing that to navigate a 162-game season, it takes more than a 13-man pitching staff and an 8-man bullpen. I mean, it's continuing to build depth and finding ways to strengthen it. You look at defensive play across the diamond. There are areas that you feel good about, but also I think we need to tighten our defense and getting a little bit more detailed. Just to go out there and take away, some hits that we know can prevent some runs. Offensively, the second half has been much brighter than it has in the first half or prior to that. Some of that is just the maturing of some of our young hitters and hitters in this league, and there's. Some of these guys haven't played as deep into the year that they have ever in their careers. So, that's one thing that needs to be addressed in the sense that when you're assessing everything, we got to know that some of these guys just haven't, played as many games that they have. The minor league schedule with Monday off days, and being able, having a 17 game stretch of no off days, and having the durability to not only show up every day but to perform at a high level. Those are areas that need to be focused on. So, like I said, there's plenty of areas that need to be improved on. We got to understand the strengths of the player. There's going to be opportunities to add to this group, and if appropriate, we'll go ahead and try to attack that.
How would you define that then? You said there's opportunities to add to this group, and if appropriate. So, like you said, you build some excitement not just within the clubhouse but among the fan base, it seems too. So how do you kind of add prudently, and what would that look like? I know you're just starting meetings and that kind of thing going for 2026.
Well, you got to get an understanding of what the free agent market is. Obviously, what other clubs are trying to accomplish in regards to, working out a trade to help out each club. So time will tell. You need to kind of get a sense of, how quickly the market's going to move. I think more than anything, you look at the free agent market, you look at the pitching and the hitting, and what we feel like can be a fit here. It's a little too early to predict how everything's going to play out, but I think all areas of the team can be improved. But the most important thing is continuing the improvement and development of our young players.
As you look at where you are in this process, is it time to add some significant pieces, or is it too early for that from the outside?
It's honestly just too early right now to state how we're going to approach this offseason. The primary focus is certainly making sure these guys, close out the year strongly, have an excellent offseason, and get ready to go in spring training. And we'll look at the free agent market. If it makes sense and we match up, then we'll go ahead and do that. But what's really going to drive this are the players that are currently in our uniform. And if there are opportunities to supplement this group and continue to drive this forward, we're going to go ahead and do that.
Does the uncertainty of 2027 impact the possibility of adding free agents?
To be honest, that really, I don't want to focus on that too much. What's going to happen is going to happen. We just want to continue to find ways to get better. We really do. It's not, talking about this year or this year or this year. I mean, you look at Will and how he tackles each day. It's finding a pathway to victory. You might have a tough loss, but the group shows up the following day ready to win, and that's led by Will and his consistency of messaging and his ability to adapt and connect with our players to motivate them on a daily basis. So we don't want to get too far in front of us. We're focused on having an excellent off season and building that momentum into 26. And then after 26, we'll focus on the future years.
You've had a lot of praise for the coaching staff along with Will. Do you expect it to be back intact, or when will that decision kind of start coming?
That decision will be once the season closes. We're continuing to have those conversations and, reviewing everything and really getting dialed in on the areas that need to improve. But those decisions will happen when the season ends.
You guys have a lot of near major league ready pitching coming back healthy on schedule next season. How does that complicate the pitching picture for you guys? As much as it's great to have a lot of that young talent coming back and returning, are there veteran innings that you've got to add to make sure that those guys, as they get ramped up, still have the runway, but also be protected?
Yeah, having a depth of pitching is honestly not too complicated. I think it's welcomed. Are there opportunities to protect some of our young pitchers and, attack in the off season to do that? Yeah, I think we'll look into opportunities to, protect these young players. And, looking at, Birmingham's in the playoffs right now, and, woke up this morning and read reports, and they had a tough loss last night, but to see what Bergoya and Antonacci and McDougal and others, how they've been finishing up the season, and knowing that we've got a group of players that are pushing forward and certainly could come into play next year. But to your point, with some of the players that are pitchers that are coming back from injury and how they fit into what we're doing, we're going to find a way. We really will, and to have as many options as we've been able to create here with more additions coming, that's going to be welcome, and we look forward to navigating with that group.
Chris, speaking of depth, your catching position is very strong. Obviously, you got two young, and Corey's young also. How do you see that playing out going forward?
Well, we're being that the catching position, it may be the most important position on the field. We going back to really being strong up the middle and establishing a middle infield like we have with Colson Montgomery and Mydroth, and I bring up Bergoya and Antonacci that are, in the wings and pushing forward. But going back to the catching group, the tandem that we've rolled with Teal and Caro. It's really comforting to know that we not only have two, but we have three, young catchers here. How it's going to play out, it's yet to be seen. It's vital to build that catching depth, not only to protect your own organization, but we know how valuable it is in our industry. So, is there an opportunity to repurpose some of these players to help in other areas? Sure, we're open-minded to it. But more than anything, I feel really good about where we are in the catching front. That hasn't been the case in the past. So, we're going to use that to our benefit moving forward.
When you say repurpose, maybe use Kyle or at your another position too, kind of work them, turn them the other.
Not necessarily the versatility. They're certainly athletic enough. Kyle's got a history of playing across the diamond going back to his college days. But the continued development of those guys as catches is the most important thing. And, Corey, he's athletic, just as athletic as anyone on a field. And, he's been taking balls in the outfield. He takes his ground balls on the infield. Is he going to become a regular in those positions? I doubt it. However, it just speaks to his ability to play baseball and help a team win. And it's been nice having him up here as a third catcher because it's allowed us to get some extra at bats and playing time for the others. But as we continue to assess everything and trying to find ways to improve this club, we're open-minded in how to take advantage of the catching role.
You have a number of position players, Corey included, who would be out of options next spring. Is that sustainable as far as roster flexibility, or would that maybe necessitate moving some things around to create more kind of ability to incorporate different pieces you'll need?
Yeah, when players run out of options and you're trying to maintain as much flexibility as you can, you don't want to lose that flexibility. So, players run out of options, and you perhaps need to change course a little bit. But we also know that because the position is so important, maintaining that depth and to have a group that we have, it's not something that you take lightly or casual with how you perhaps reallocate that. So as it stands right now, we're just we're happy that we have the three catchers that we do.
You've been pretty consistent on talking about Luis Robert and how the team feels about him as he deals with this injury here, as his season can be kind of looked at as a whole. How does that change maybe any of the decision-making process going forward, if it does?
It doesn't really change anything. We knew that when he hurt his hamstring, that we knew that was a possibility, that there might be an injury that hits him or someone else. But what Louis is obviously proven that he can be an impactful player, and it doesn't need to just be in the box. So, he's still in a White Sox uniform. We anticipate him being in a White Sox uniform next year, and it just continue to strengthen our group up the middle.
I was going to say, it's usually premature to ask about a contract, but have you made a decision on that option?
Yeah, I expect him to be back.
Okay.
We talked a lot to Paul Janisch about Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, among many others. Are they at where you wanted them to be? If you look back to what your thoughts were in February or January, are they where you want them to be at this point going through this?
Yeah, truthfully, I was hoping that these guys would be, ready to contribute right out of the gate next year. That might not be the case based on how their seasons played out, but it doesn't change our assessment and the ceiling of the player. You look at the engine that these guys have, and all it really takes is putting together 5-6 outings, and all of a sudden you look up and they're making a good run. There's plenty of examples of that. So Hagen's going to be in the Arizona Fall League, continuing his season. Noah, the knee injury has been nagging, and to get that rested and rehabilitated is going to be important for his power and his command and his continual development. And I think we're going to look up and see those guys helping our major league club fairly soon.
You mentioned Will a little earlier. Just how would you sort of assess his first year as a club's manager?
Yeah, Will's been excellent, and I've talked about his steadiness and his consistency of message and his ability to connect. When you're talking about a lengthy season and you see coaches and managers and players kind of ride the roller coaster a little bit, and he although we might have a tough loss, I know that the following day when I walk into his office, he's ready to go and put together a plan to win that ball game, and that's what made us so attracted to him. And as the season progressed, we just became more and more impressed with his ability to lead this team, lead this clubhouse, and be a leader in this organization. So Will's had an excellent first season as a manager. Sometimes you need to remind yourself that this is still his first year managing, and that's just a testament to his ability to adjust, to read the room, and continue to be the person that Will Venable is, and that's a guy that shows up clear-minded and creates optimism within our clubhouse.
You mentioned the offensive improvements in the second half. Would you call that a pleasant surprise? Did you top 10 OPS and some other?
Yeah, that's a pleasant surprise. I mean, when coming in, after the All-Star break and the way they got off to such a great start, and then continued that. You look back at Colson Montgomery and once again what he was doing earlier in the year and what he has done at the major league level. That was a bit of a surprise, and certainly a pleasant one. So, this offense is capable. Does it need to be a little bit deeper and a little bit more balanced and perhaps get a little bit more creative in finding runs and creating runs? Sure. But that's just part of navigating a lengthy season. But I think these guys, they should have a fair amount of confidence based on their experience this year to help their growth for 2026.
What are you seeing from Colson defensively, and what his future could be there at short?
He's been very consistent. You look at how accurate his throws are, his steadiness of his glove. He's a reliable defender that, oftentimes people point to his height and is he going to be able to stick at shortstop? I think he's proven that he can, and it can be he can make an impact defensively. The way that he leads, the entire field, the captain, so to speak, on the infield, he's got that presence about him. So, we feel very confident that he's going to be able to remain at shortstop for a while, and we feel very fortunate to have him at that position.
16 to 20 game improvements win improvements don't happen obviously year after year, but when you look at your own division, you had teams up until a week ago that have still been in the wild card hunt. So when you do your projections, you look at this team and what you want to add, how do you not get too far ahead of yourself? Or is this team maybe some of these pleasant surprises, maybe hit the gas pedal a little quicker to say maybe next year that could be us in the final weeks of the season competing?
Well, you don't want to set too low of expectations for a young group. We have players that are performing better here than they did at times at the minor league level. So I don't want to limit them by any stretch. But I do think it's important to know that this is still a young, impressionable group that's developing at the major league level, and. Is there excitement? Is there optimism? Absolutely. We need to continue to find ways to support these players. We took a jump in regards to, wins this year. But, and I go back to Will and how one of his strengths is just staying in the moment, and we never get ahead of ourselves. We don't talk about next week or the following week. It's about the game in front of you, and you look around the league, and I think the Tigers are a prime example of what they accomplished last year. And talking to the Tigers, talking to their front office and coaching staff, I don't think they really thought that they were going to make the run that they did, but you just looked up and you win this series and that series, and then you won 10 out of 12, and before you know it, you're knocking on to a playoff opportunity. That's how this happens. It's, so you just continue to find ways to improve. This club has proven that they believe in themselves, that they can beat anyone. We've won series against first base clubs, teams that are the top of the league. These guys aren't scared. They're fearless out there, and that type of attack and approach is going to bode well for us. So, I don't want to limit them. I really don't, and it's my job to continue to support and add to this club when as the opportunities come our way. And I know that in the future here we're going to look up and feel pretty good about where we're at. I mean, the fans have been fantastic. They really have. I go back to our Friday nights at home, our City Connect nights. And it's been really fun. It really has. And I've had opportunity to speak to groups of our fan base and getting their feedback and the things that they like and want to see, and it's been really positive. It has, and I think it's important for our fans to know that our players, they love having the fans support. They love having them show up. They perform well. And I want our fans to be a part of it. The Chicago fan base is a special one. I talk to former players all the time about how special this place is. Recently had a conversation with Paul Konerko and, was getting feedback from him. And, I kind of talking about the similar message of how great this fan base is, and he says, if you've got a team that shows fight and doesn't give up and likes to play together and plays this game hard, the fans will get around you. And we felt that this year, and we appreciate it, and we owe it to the fans to continue to grow this group.
Mike Vassal's had really successful multi-inning outings so far this year. Are you open to him being a starter down the road and maybe even competing for a rotation spot in spring training?
We like him in the bullpen. We do. Not to say that he can't be a starter at some point, but to be able to pitch leverage and also offer multi-inning opportunities, and he's not scared. That's for sure. He loves those moments. He even talks about pitching in those moments. He wants more of those. So, for a guy that wasn't protected in his own organization and get Rule 5'd and then get claimed by us and be able to provide what he has this year is excellent. So we're going to continue to grow him in that bullpen role. He seems to really enjoy it. He's got a long career in front of him, so I don't want to close the door on starting down, in the future. But for us next year, I see him in the bullpen.
What does the outlook look like for Grant Taylor, expectedly?
Yeah, he's obviously come up here and really helped our bullpen. And it's more than just what his inning or 2 innings might provide. It's more being able to put some of our other arms in roles that are better for them, and that just speaks to what he's capable of doing and the depth that continues to grow with the bullpen role. We'll continue to have that conversation, whether it be with Grant in the group, in the front office, and figure out what's best for him and our club. He's a guy that he's had some groin hiccups here recently in the last couple weeks. So, getting him healthy back on the mound is the most important thing as we get to the finish line here, and then we'll figure out his offseason and his 2026.
Chris, what do you think about the Mike Tauchman's contributions? Are you interested in bringing him back for another year?
Yeah, Tauch's been really good. I mean, he brings a consistent at bat. He's had some nagging injuries that he's played through, and which is certainly appreciated. I think it's good for our clubhouse to see a guy at this stage of his career fight the way that he does. But I most importantly, he's been a productive player. So, he's a guy that, we're going to, you target players like that. We'll have conversations with Tauch and his group, and certainly open-minded in bringing him back in some capacity.
You don't seem like the type that would ignore the postseason. Like, will you watch it? And when you do you get those, like, that needs to be us someday soon?
Yeah, I'll watch it. I will. There's just excitement, and watching teams in the playoffs, and it makes you hungry. I look forward to the days that we're in the playoffs and experience what these teams are experiencing and what it does to an organization and a fan base. So I look forward to those days, and are there going to be takeaways from watching the playoffs? I think there will be. you look at some of the teams that were in the playoffs last year and now going to be this year, and there's always clubs that, going into spring training, you didn't anticipate being in the playoffs, and perhaps that's us in the near future. But I look forward to watching the playoffs and learning from those clubs and how they've gone about putting together their team and their style of play, and when appropriate, apply it to our club.
When you have a manager in place like Will, who's, as you say, trying to find a path to win every night, does that provide an extra impetus, I guess, to give him, the tools to do that, or boost it up a little bit? I don't know if it makes it accelerate the rebuild, but is it another factor you kind of consider as what your timeline is, feeling like he's ready for that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, he's ready to manage any style of club. We knew where we were at as an organization and why we brought him in. But he's a dynamic person. He's an intelligent guy that can relate to the veteran player, the younger player, the developing player. I'm always motivated to improve our club. There are different ways to do it. Most importantly, it's continue to support these guys in the off season and get ready for 2026. I'm motivated to improve the club for Will, but also others in the organization and our fans, most importantly.
You talked about the expectations you have for a couple minor league pitchers to be able to contribute up here next year. He flew through the system this year a little bit. Braden Montgomery, do you have expectations of him contributing up here next year as well?
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. He carried an 800 OPS in his first full season, also coming to a new organization. So, another guy that, we know that's going to have a really good off season. We'll see, how it looks come spring training next year. I could see him contributing at some point next year.
David Kettler was here talking yesterday about the international scouting side. Just how have you seen that area grow over the last year or so, and how does that kind of play into the future?
Yeah, David, he's gone beyond what I tasked him to do. He's really built out a comprehensive process for evaluating and players, and he brought in some people to really help support our international process, and they've done a really nice job. I've spent some time down there with that group, and I see how they interact with scouts and trainers, and building those relationships which are vital for getting some of these players. So there's always a lag to any type of acquisition, whether it be the amateur draft, but certainly on the international side, just based on the age in which we're signing players. So I think the future is very bright based on what he's been able to accomplish so far, and beyond just the international process. I look how we've gone about our acquisitions on trades and free agents and the draft, and we're gonna, there's some things that we like and some areas that we want to continue to improve, and that's part of this offseason and the future of the White Sox.
He described some pretty dramatic changes in that department. How different a place is it in now than it was even just a couple of years ago, a year or so?
Yeah, it's dramatically different. It is. So it's allowed us to what I feel like make better decisions. And in the end, as these players mature and grow and work towards the major leagues and get to the major leagues, we'll feel it. Unfortunately, you have to wait. But presently, I feel like we're going about it the right way.
Chris, you obviously have a lot of young starter depth as a strength. By next year, do you see maybe you need to move some of those guys to the bullpen and try them there, or what's your philosophy on that?
That's a possibility. You oftentimes want to exhaust young pitchers to be starters, but in all reality, you want to put together the best pitching staff that you can, and if there are opportunities to put guys in the bullpen, because that makes us better, we're open to that. I don't think we're at the point where we're just overflowing with starters. I hope that is different in the near future, and there's a chance that might happen. And guys going to the bullpen is a real possibility.
First base and closer are two spots where teams can very quickly spend inefficiently. You've kind of had a rotation at both those spots this year, but do you see those as being spots that you would ever have like a set player, or would sign a big free agent, or how do you kind of view philosophically, like what's the best way to fill those kind of roles?
Well, you look at, historically, what's available on the free agent market, and those are areas that oftentimes there seems to be more options than others. That doesn't mean you always, choose correctly. But there are more options than perhaps, whether it be the shortstop position or catcher or center field. So, and that's why we've really focused on strengthening our team up the middle, knowing that we can go out and it's easier at least to grab, some players that play the wing position. So, versatility, it remains important. It does, always will, because that flexibility allows you, if a guy has a nagging injury, that you've got players that can play other positions. But we'll see. I mean, those are areas that we'll look at this offseason. If it makes sense to attack it, we will.
Martin Perez has been really good when he's been on the field. Obviously, he had the arm issue that put him down for almost 4 months. Would you like to see him back with the team next year?
Yeah, Martin's been great for us. Obviously the setback of the injury was unfortunate for him and for us. But when he's taken the ball, he's done a really nice job. And beyond what he does on the field in the clubhouse, the pro that he is, and he really embodies the leadership role. We'll have those conversations. We like Martin, we really do, and would be happy to have him come back here. It's my understanding that he'd be open to it as well. Obviously, there's more time and conversations that need to be had. He's pitching today, and look forward to watching him pitch today.
What stood out to you about both Vargas and also Sosa as well?
Hey, both those guys have taken steps forward. It was unfortunate Miguel got, had that hand injury with Aaron Judge. It's good to have him back in the lineup. The way that he's played a solid third base and a first base, and he's had some real stretches of helping our offense. I think that there's another step forward that he can make, and he's got the makeup to attack it in the right way to help his own game, to help our team. Lenine has done a really nice job in the box. He's hit for power. He's gotten big hits for us. He needs to continue to develop on the defensive side. He's played some first base, obviously some second base as well. He needs to maintain that versatility and ability to play other positions beyond first base or DH. That's something that, conversations that we've had with him and will drive forward, this offseason. But these guys have taken steps forward. They have, and, both of them I feel like can take another step for us.
This team has played almost 500 ball, in the second half. Does that set an expectation level for next season to set that as a benchmark, or to even go beyond that?
We feel good about, what they were able to accomplish in the second half, considering, how we've performed in the past. Once again, talking about wins and losses is not something that we often focus on, because it really is about winning the game that's in front of you. But what we saw in the second half, I think, is real. I do. So it's our job to support it and maintain that and continue to take steps forward.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Chris.